Nobody cares that you're a freelancer. Nobody cares that you're an email copywriter, you're a web designer. They don't care about any of that. They care about how are you going to help them. You should be doing outreach every single day until you get your business to a point to where you're like, okay, the lights are going to be on, everything's good. The people that work for me are taken care of. I'm making good money from it, because obviously your business, you're not taking 100% of the money. Like if your business is doing 20 grand a month, it doesn't mean that you're making 20 grand a month. How much are you paying yourself in salary? Obviously, you got people that work for you. And focus on building a solid foundation for your business, even if it's taking a step back from outreach. And then once you get everything running as it should be, the systems are in place, the people on the team know what they're doing, and clients are fulfilled, then at that point you can take that step forward. And you're actually not going to take just one step, you might take 5 steps forward. You also have to just accept, 1, responsibility for a lot of people, and then 2, you should always be feeling pressure. People these days, they want things to feel like perfect and easygoing and all that, but it's just not going to get you to the life that you want. You should always be feeling pressure. Maybe I'm just delusional and crazy, but I like feeling like I'm falling behind, like I'm stagnating. I like that.
So the first place I want to start with Paraguay. So how does a guy come from Charleston, South Carolina, and then ends up in Paraguay of all places?
Yeah, bro. So it's one of those things where for years I was always, there's no reason I would ever go to South America, period. And a couple years ago, whenever a certain thing was happening around the world, if you know what I mean, certain lockdowns and all that,
Matrix.
I was living in Qatar at the time, and they were getting super, super strict. And to make a long story short, I ended up moving to South America, specifically Brazil. I was there for like 3.5 months, but I didn't really like it. Brazil, all in all, it's a good place, but it's one of those spots where you kind of have to look over your shoulder a little bit, especially if you don't speak the language, which I don't speak Portuguese. And then I went to Colombia. I lived there for about 3.5 months also, and there were riots, and it was bad. Like the government decided for whatever reason, oh, people can't operate their businesses, so we're just going to increase the taxes. There's a bunch of other weird political stuff. I was literally on my balcony, and they shot at his helicopters he was flying over. I was just like, yeah. So like 3.5 months left there. Went to Costa Rica, didn't like it. I was told by a friend I should have went out to the beaches or the mountain area. Like I stayed in the capital city, did not like it. And then I went to Mexico. I was there for about 4 or 5 months, and I decided, I was like, I want to go back to America just to see if maybe it's because I was poor whenever I lived there that I wasn't crazy about it. So I had the money by this point. I'd already was taking care of my mom. She was good. So I went to Dallas and was there for a couple months. Went back home for a couple months. Went to my like original hometown for a couple months. I was in America for like 6 months total. And I was like, I want to go back out. I need to find somewhere outside the U.S. It's not that I'm anti-U.S. I'm not. I think America's still a great country. The people are awesome. Lots of opportunities. It's just not my lifestyle. It's becoming more and more of a police state with like, but there's not really much benefit to it. Like,
Mhm.
so I was like, I just don't really want to live in the U.S. Eventually, I would like to move my family out as well, which leads us to drum roll, Paraguay. A friend of mine, 'cause I wanted a home, like a home base that I could build. I'd been for the last 2.5, 3 years up to that point, had been bouncing around. So you'd start building up a network there. You'd start getting used to the area. You'd start getting certain places on lock, and then you leave, and you probably will never go back. So a friend of mine, his name's Lawrence King. He was living in Paraguay. I don't know how long he'd been there, but he basically just said, "Oh yeah, Paraguay is a pretty good spot. Residency is relatively easy." And I got introduced to a really high level lawyer there. She's super awesome. She's still one of my lawyers today. And residency like that within like a month. Had residency, had a bank account set up, had everything set up. So I was like, okay, I'm going to move to Paraguay because a huge issue that I had beforehand is getting residency in a lot of these spots. Well, it's not really that complicated once you know what to do.
Yeah.
But before that, I thought residency was super complicated. But I was like, oh wow, I could just pay this lawyer, and she just handles everything. So done. What I love about Paraguay, because I still have some business interests there as well. Paraguay, it's South America mixed with a little bit of Europe, but it's also safe. Like you'll literally see Paraguayans that are like, you would assume they're like German or something, but they are 100% Paraguayan. They don't speak English at all. They don't speak German. They just speak Spanish with a mixture of, they've got their own language, Guarani. So it's like their native language mixed with Spanish all in one. It's like a hybrid. And Paraguay's just awesome. It's cheap. Like I had like a really nice apartment there for about 1,600 US a month. 2 bedroom, nice balcony, just like the whole thing. So for anybody that's watching this, if you are looking for a country, like you're just getting into this online space, you don't need to live in a place like Dubai. Dubai is expensive. But if you're just getting into making money online and you want to save money and reinvest it into your business, a place like Paraguay would be fantastic, because like I was one of the last people to get permanent residency. Now they've changed the rules a little bit. So I think you can have 1 to 2 years residency. But I was one of the last people to get permanent residency. But it's still just as easy. So a place like Paraguay or the country of Georgia, I mean, there's lots of countries around the world that if you want to build an actual home base, which leads me to, I guess, my rambling point would be like to truly become successful, make a lot of progress, you need a home base. Like I can look back over the last 3.5, 4 years of me traveling, and the times where I spent a lot of time in one area for more than just a month or two, my progress is just night and day. Because if you're going around, you're traveling, you're dealing with annoying flights, and it takes me about a week or two to really get into a solid routine, and you start to know the area. And there's definitely some hacks or whatever, travel hacks, to where you can mitigate some of that. But you need to find a place that's cheap, it's safe. Obviously, you don't want to be looking over your shoulder, and easy to get residency set up. So once again, my rambling response to your question is that's why I ended up choosing Paraguay. Is it checked all the boxes for me.
It's like the one place in South America that's really like actually safe. Like you
Yeah.
never really hear anything about it. Like I never hear about anything about it at all. But I really advocate
Mhm.
for that, man, 100%. And that's the reason why I asked you, is
Yeah.
because like I spend a lot of time in Asia. Obviously, Singapore is super expensive right now, but like
Yeah.
even Thailand, Indonesia, like Vietnam. I heard like the
Mhm.
Wi-Fi in Vietnam is like even better than most places across Europe. So like you need somewhere that like to minimize your expenses in the early years, like when it's really painful. Like I don't understand why you would pay London prices, New York prices, San Fran prices, even if you were
Mhm.
building a startup. I just don't see why you would do it, you know? So trying to give yourself as much fucking chance as possible
Yeah.
before it actually gets hard, so that you can go live your life, you know? And I love one of your sayings during that as well, is the fact that, you know, you mentioned about when you get healthy, you don't blow it and get a fucking McDonald's meal. And then when you're working on your money, you don't blow it and get a Rolex straight away. That's the
Yeah.
perfect example, that when you start making money online, you don't just blow it. You just be
Yeah.
sensible, be reasonable. How did you come to that realization, man?
From being an idiot many times,
Yeah.
I
But you
got
hang
to a
around with
point
people that
where
spend a lot of money.
yeah, yeah. Because there were several times my come up, and I'm always going to be in a come up. You should always be getting better. So I
Yeah.
haven't made it. People think that I've made it, and I haven't. I always want to be getting better, but there have been a handful of times where like I would be earning the most money I'd ever earned up to that point. But at the end of the month, I wouldn't have that much. And I was like, okay, Dylan, you're being an idiot here. You literally just earned the average American yearly salary in a month, but yet you've literally got like 8 grand in your bank account. Like, what are you doing? And doing that repeatedly, eventually you're just like, oh my God, you need to be smart about this, because this actually, the most recent time this happened was last year. I can't remember what month it was, but I had an issue with a project I'm very involved with. And it wasn't anything on their end. It was just some like banking issues. And for like a solid 2 months, it was progressively harder for us to do what we were doing at that time. And that was like a reality check. Like, wow, you can be like in full God mode. Everything's just working, but you don't know what opportunities are temporary, or maybe something's going to come randomly is going to happen, or maybe something health related happens. Cause obviously you can't guarantee you're going to be in perfect health for the rest of your life. You can take advantage of like working out, eating good food and all that, but you don't know what's going to happen. And so I've had that happen many times to me, being an idiot, but also just observing other people. Like I've got a good friend of mine who was super, super successful, and he got lazy, and then some other stuff happened, got lazy. He started taking things for granted. And his one client, who was his top paying client, which literally most of his income came from that one person. And the person decided to retire. The person retired. Now he doesn't have that income stream. And then he's like, Dylan, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm running out of money. I got lazy. I started stagnating. I don't have all these case studies like you do, blah, 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 blah. So on my end, it comes down to you need to remember that yes, right now, maybe it's great. Maybe you're making the most possible money you've ever made. Maybe you're in the best health, best energy ever, but it doesn't mean it's going to be there for eternity. Like at some point, maybe one little thing's going to happen. And I could even go back about 4 years ago. I had a client of mine that was paying me about $3,000 a month to write emails for him. And we signed like a deal together. I was only going to do the sequences for him, like the welcome sequence, product sequences. But then that turned into, actually, can you write my weekly newsletter? And I started getting into I started stagnating. I was making $3,000 a month from him. I had two other clients I was working with. I was doing well. He was still my top paying client at that time. And then once, I forgot how long we even worked together. But to make a long story short, he was like, okay, Dylan, the sequences you put together are great. I have a good understanding. I've freed up my time because he sold another business he had, sold this business, and I'm going to get into just writing my own newsletters, blah, blah, blah. I'm taking the business in a new direction. And then I lost that. And I was just like, it was actually, funnily enough, it was right when I left Qatar and moved to Brazil. So I just moved to Brazil. I thought that I had X amount of money coming in. I stopped doing outreach almost completely. And I was just sitting there like, I literally just like next month, I'm not going to have that $3,000 coming in, which at that time was still like, man, I just got kicked in the balls, which goes to my philosophy of you need to always be doing outreach and building a web of, it doesn't have to, I'm not one of those guys, 7 income streams, but if you're like a freelancer, like I teach freelancing, don't rely on that one client. Just like in the 9 to 5, you don't want to rely on that one 9 to 5 job. You don't know what's going to happen. So you should always build like a base around yourself of, sure, have your top paying client, give them a lot of your energy, but you should also be creating systems around you, whether it's you just working with 1 or 2 other clients, 3 other clients, or even better, getting yourself to a position where you have a person that's working for you, or you can even design a team around you to where clients are being fulfilled. And sure, you can still, once again, focus on that one main client if you want, but you need to have other clients coming in because otherwise, once again, you can't predict what's going to happen. And a lot of, especially the guys that I teach, they have this like arrogance and bravado about them that, oh, I'm going to be on top forever. No, you're not. You never know what's going to happen. You can always be pushing, of course. You always should, but you should be prepared just in case stuff really hits the fan. I don't know if I can cuss on the podcast, but if shit hits
Of
the
course you
fan,
can. Of course you can,
you have to
man.
be prepared. Yeah, you need to be prepared, bro. You need to be
Yeah.
prepared.
Hard times are on the way, and you have to be prepared for
Yes.
that shit, man. And I know you know Justin well, and when I was recording with him, he was saying his favorite word is being relentless, and I think
Yeah.
that's the stuff that I try to just embody a lot of the times because, especially in the online space, like you might be at 10K a month, 2 clients are dropped from you, you're down to 3,000 again month again. It's over. You know what I mean? You're back to
Yeah.
fucking square one. You need to have that
Yeah.
level of relentlessness. Now, how did you instill that in you? Because
Mhm.
it's easy to just get complacent at different times, even when you're moving, transferring. So like, how do you do that on an action basis? Like, what systems do you build to make sure that you're moving forward continuously month over month?
So I mean, the life that I've created, and I don't recommend this for everybody. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I disagreed with this point, but I understood where he's coming from. I've always, because I tend to be, I'm one of those guys where I don't need a lot. I'm a very simple person. If I have a decent apartment, a bed I can lay on, a cafe nearby I can work from, I'm good. And I've realized that, and I realized that years ago, which this correlates back to whenever I was working a regular job. I quit the job. I broke up with this girl I was seeing at the time, and I wanted to make myself so miserable that I had no option but to succeed. So I
Hmm.
started cleaning. I don't know how much my story you know, but I used to like, literally clean bathrooms, clean apartments. I even took care of some boats and stuff. And I didn't want to allow myself to have a regular job that would just be like, oh, clock in, clock out, got a decent amount of money coming in. So I forced myself to push through, push through, push through, which eventually led into freelancing a couple of years after that period, but lead us to today. I've put myself to positions where I'm responsible for people. Like I'm responsible for taking care of my girl, taking care of my mom. I've got staff that work for me that if I do not pay them one month, where's their rent money? Where I've got this one person that's got a kid. Like, So I put myself to a position where I'm responsible for a bunch of other people, which definitely adds a lot of stress. Like just the other day, I was sitting there and I just had this crazy pressure in my brain. I was just like thinking, how can we take this to the next level? I guess I want to keep pushing, pushing, pushing. And which also leads me to the point of you also have to just accept one, responsibility for a lot of people, and then two, you should always be feeling pressure. People these days, they want things to feel like perfect and easygoing and all that, but it's just not going to get you to the life that you want. You should always be feeling pressured. Maybe I'm just delusional and crazy, but I like feeling like I'm falling behind, like I'm stagnating. I like that. I like feeling like, man, I've got my mom to take care of. Like just from an ego standpoint, you never want to say, Mom, stagnated this past couple months. I can't afford to keep taking care of you, so you're gonna have to go back to a job. So I don't refuse. I refuse that reality. And anybody that's watching this, if you struggle with motivation, I'm not telling you to retire your mom right now. That was the point that I was making earlier. A friend of mine is like, bro, that is an amount of responsibility that you should not have put on yourself so early. Like as soon as I could afford it, started taking care of my mom. It started out with just sending her a little bit of money, and then I retired her. But for the people that are watching this, like you need to put yourself into situations where you have no other option but to push through. Because at least once again, for me, I'm a very simple man. I don't need that much, so I constantly have to push myself to these higher. Like, okay, I've got to find a way to pay for that. Okay, I need to take care of this. Okay, like I have people that work for me; they're crushing it. I want to see them succeed. Like the people that work for me and have been with me for a couple of years, I don't want them to be getting paid the same amount of money month after month after month. I want to be taking on bigger things so that I can afford to pay them more. So they're
Mhm.
making 10 grand a month, et cetera. So little things like that are what I do on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis to constantly trick my brain, if you want to call it that, into going after more. Because to be honest, whenever I was finally making 20 grand a month, I stagnated for a little bit. I was living in Bogota, Colombia at the time. I stagnated. I was like making just enough. I didn't have to work all the time, and I was happy. But eventually, because every person, once you go through, I call it purgatory. You're not living in hell. You're not living in heaven. You're just existing.
Mhm.
And I was just existing. It was just me, two other people that were working for me. It was good. One person full time, one person was kind of just like a gig by gig basis. We were doing all right. We're doing all right. I was living in a nice place in Bogota, but eventually, purgatory, if you're a person with a soul, which everybody that's watching this has a soul, you're going to feel this like, man, there has to be more to life. And
Mhm.
you can allow it to either make you miserable or you can allow it to motivate yourself and be like, okay, even though it's not going to be easy, I'm going to push to this next level. But yeah, bro, I mean, that's really at the end of the day, what I do is to be relentless. It's about being responsible for other people outside of myself. Otherwise, to be honest, I'm naturally a lazy person unless I'm responsible for other people. Yeah.
It's putting yourself in those situations, man. And I love when you said the heaven and hell analogy. I think that's actually from Jordan Peterson, or was one of his references. But that's where I learned it from anyway originally, was the fact that if
Mhm.
you think of the worst possible scenario, like you going back to
Mhm.
cleaning toilets or cleaning fucking apartments again, right? That's the hell. That's what gets you up in the morning. And then
Mhm.
the heaven then is, okay, you can do 100K a month or 200K a month or whatever it is. But you often don't
Mhm.
get that heaven in a 9 to 5. Even at the best
Yeah.
companies, man, the best companies in the world, because you're at a certain capped level. You can earn a
Yeah.
maximum of, I don't know, like 200K a year. But then you don't
Yeah.
have that drive. So that's why I think that's a beautiful like serendipity of like online business. The fact that yes, it can go shit and tits up and it can really fuck you over. But at the same
Yeah.
vein, it's all on you. And you can take that responsibility and really fucking go with it, man. And really, really pushing it. And that's the beauty of it. What I want to ask you on that
Mhm.
is, have you ever had a period of life where you didn't take responsibility? So you went through a period whereby you were completely the victim. Has that ever happened to you?
Hmm. Maybe in different ways. I've never been in a position where like I was like, oh, woe is me. Like maybe I guess the best example of being a quote unquote victim is maybe feeling. Oh, I can give you now that it just came to me. It was back whenever I went to Brazil, and I lost that 3K client just writing emails for him, and I almost started feeling like I was losing my touch. And I, for a solid, I don't know how long, it felt like eternity. For maybe it was a couple days, maybe it was a couple weeks. I did feel maybe this isn't for you, Dylan. Like oh my, like this, maybe you're losing your touch. Maybe like you need to find something else to do. And very quickly, I was just like, wait a second, what are you doing? And I reminded myself like a year and a half earlier, I was cleaning properties, I was doing all that. And then if I went back even further, I was literally this back rewind to 2016. I was sitting there. I just quit my job. I'd been jobless for about a month by this point. I was just staring up at the ceiling, and I had no idea of how to make money. I saw the little bit of savings I had just going dwindling, and I felt like a victim, like 100%, because I didn't know what to do. But then you have to realize that, and it doesn't feel good. It sucks. You have to realize literally nobody's going to do anything for you. They're not, some magical person's not going to come out and be like, okay, Dylan, you're a really inspirational guy. I think you can positively impact a lot of people. And, oh, you know, your mom, you need to take care of her as well because her health isn't the best. You know what? Here, bro, let me write a check. Your life's changed. Boom. Nobody's going to do that. As amazing as that would be, like I used to fantasize growing up that my real dad would come out of nowhere and he was like some multi billionaire, everything would be good. That was like a childhood fantasy. That's a fantasy. We live in the real world, meaning you can be a victim, you can feel bad, you can feel certain emotions, you can have self-doubt, you can do all that type of stuff, but what does that actually do? It doesn't do anything for you, and it actually hurts the people around you, because if you're not going to be doing anything and you're going to just be this like victim going through life feeling that life is happening to you instead of you happening to life. That's a quote I really like, is that you happen to life. And like I actually remind myself that of like often. Life's going to suck. It's going to suck for you. It's going to suck for the people around you. And I tweeted this at some point a month ago, 2 months ago. Like, if you have less, meaning less money, less strength, you're not in the best shape, by default, everybody around you is going to also have less. Meaning, whether it's your family, your future kids, like in the next year or two, I would like to start having kids as well, God willing. Like, if I'm being lazy and I'm just being a victim, my future children, their life's going to suck. Or the people that work for me, their life's going to suck. And it does. You don't even need to be a business owner to realize this. Like, your life, even as a 9 to 5 worker, is going to suck if you just sit around feeling like a victim and feeling depressed, because the emotions are always going to be there. Like, people see me and my girl just the other day was like, Dylan, like I didn't even know you were like going through that. I was like, no, I'm like, there, it literally serves no purpose for me to show that I'm going through something mentally. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah.
it literally serves no purpose. So I may as well just be completely calm and I just take care of things. And I'm not going to act like I just overnight, I've been like this since the beginning, but
Mhm.
it's repetitions. And this is something that people really need to realize, is that they expect all these changes and mindset shifts, or I can read this one page from a book and my life's going to be changed forever. That's not how it happens. It's repeatedly reading and living, because, and I tell my students this all the time, experience breeds confidence. By
Mhm.
you going through the experience time and time again over years and years and years, that's when you finally have this overnight, like, oh my God, that's what that really means. Or, oh wow, you look back and you're like, I really am the man of whatever your thing, or I'm the woman, whatever your thing is.
Mhm.
But yeah, bro, that's my answer.
Gain confidence, man, from experiences, like the real
Mhm.
tough fucking experiences, man. And I completely understand and sympathize with you and like understand that scenario. And I'm going through a lot of
Yeah.
that as well at the moment. Like, man, like I had like 4 sales calls this week and 4 of them were cancelled and 2 no
Oh,
shows, And
yeah.
like last night, it's like 11:30 at night, working 15 hours, had a no show.
Mhm.
And then it was all about what's the response. The response is get back on it, get back up this morning, start moving forward, start getting yourself
Mhm.
ready, go to the gym, get back into normal motion instead of being the victim. And I think that's what's very
Yeah.
important, is about like, it's not really matter about, it's not the issue what's happening right now, it's about how you respond to it and how you move forward. And I think that's what
100%.
I learn a lot from you from that perspective, because I see that over time and going through like your videos, like you've just leveled up and leveled up and leveled up. But I know it hasn't been fucking easy, and I know it's not a charade as well. That's what's most important here. I want to ask you one
Mhm.
question. I heard you mention before that you were labeled with like a disability when you were younger.
Yeah.
What was that in reference to?
Yeah. So back in the day, like I could not read until I was like 8 or 9 years old. Like I could kind of read, but if you gave me like the most simple book ever and told me to read it in front of you, like I just couldn't read. I could hardly write. So that was definitely like a memory in my mind. Like and to be honest, and I'm just being, I think I've only talked about this once before. Like I labeled myself like not that intelligent up until like literally like a year or two ago. Like I always allowed that limiting belief in my mind, which was definitely a driving force for me because I was like, man, I've got to over deliver. I've got to prove myself. But I finally realized I was like, oh wow, you are actually intelligent. But going back to your point, yeah, I couldn't read, I could barely write, and they put me into a learning disabled class, which is basically you have a handler that is in every class that you're in, like regular people classes, but they're taking notes. And it was kind of freaky because I read it years later that Dylan began anxiously looking around the class as everybody was beginning the blah, blah, blah. And it was like literally word for word writing every little thing, like about how anxious I was looking around, how I couldn't read. And they put me in this, so you have a handler, but then after that, they also put you in this like special room with other learning disabled kids. And it was this weird, it was like, imagine like a stage where you perform in front of like the school. And then behind that, there's like this little meeting room. That's where we would be. And it was just this weird, dark, dreary room. I'm seeing it in my mind right now. And we would all just be sitting around there. And I would be sitting there. And I still remember to this day, I was like 8, 9 years old. I would be looking around and be like, I am not like these kids. Like, oh, these kids actually have issues. Like, I am not. So it made me like really hunker down. And like by that next year, because I failed the second grade, by the next year, I was literally, what is it, principal's list? I don't know if that's like the highest honor. There's like honor roll, and there's that like, and I hit that, and I did all right. I was never a good student. Like basically after that, I stopped caring. Like to be
Mm.
honest, I was like, okay, I can get like a B or C and still pass. Okay, so I'll put it just enough. But even math, like they said, I was also learning disabled with math, and that was actually a limitation that I accepted for years. Like obviously I can read, obviously I can write. I get paid to write for people, but even that math thing, like to this day, I have to constantly like Dylan. Literally, it's just you're good. Like
Yeah.
you've proved yourself. So that learning disabled limitation, quote unquote, I used as to actually to go back to your point earlier. I did accept that. Like, yes, I am learning disabled. I'm not as intelligent as all these other kids. Blah 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 blah. And I accepted that for a while. But eventually, naturally, because I didn't know about reframing as a kid, obviously, I started reframing that into okay, sure, maybe I'm not as intelligent as these people, but I'm not going to let them see me as less. So I'm going to work harder. So I would work harder in school. I'd work harder whenever I do sports, and this even translated into what I'm doing now, which is I'm constantly pushing, 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 and have that driving force. So it was one of the many variables throughout my experience growing up that definitely have made me into the person I am today.
Mm.
And anybody's watching this, like you don't want to stay in that negative state. That's
Yeah.
something that I thought that I prided myself in being able to harness all that negativity, but it doesn't really serve a purpose. You should reframe it into a positive and then fuel yourself from positivity, from a more positive state of mind. Like it
100%.
definitely, I became a very unhappy person for years, like borderline miserable, even though I was pushing, I was going after my goals because I tried to just fuel myself from negativity. And it's going to make you into a soulless person unless you reframe that into more of a positive rocket fuel.
It's less sustainable over the longer period as a result,
100%.
you know. The reason why I ask you that is because I was labeled dyslexic when I was quite young, and I had like as a subconscious thought that like oh like I can't be good at like English or like writing or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I got to university, I just started like pushing a lot harder, and I started to get a lot better at it. And now, as part of my podcast, I write every single day. Like I use different platforms.
Wow.
I'm writing every single day, and my writing is fine. Like it's you wouldn't be able to distinguish it between someone else. And it's probably not as good as the fucking Oxford student, but that's not the point. But that's the reason why
Yeah.
I asked you is because like over time I've had to reframe my brain. I guess like it's the same qualities as when you go to make money for yourself. You need to reframe yourself,
Yeah.
being like, I can make $1, I can make $1,000, and I think
Mhm.
they're important principles. So, want to ask you about copywriting in particular. So that's nice. Going to segue
Yeah.
into that. Why did you pick copywriting, and why is that your preferred choice now?
Yeah. So funny. You probably don't remember these days, but back in the day, back in the good old days, it was all about blogging, and everybody was blogging back in those days. And I started following a guy named Mike Cernovich. He had a blog. There was another guy, Victor Pride. He had a blog. It was like the thing back in the day. And so in my mind, I started seeing these bloggers. I'd been interested in writing because going back to the learning disabled thing, something I pride myself in as a kid is they did some creative writing exercise. And I did this years later after I was probably like in fifth or sixth grade. And I came up with this creative story that ended up going to like, it won like the state award. So it won the school, then it won the city, and then it won the state of South Carolina. And I was like, wow. So in my mind, I kind of stored that as I'm good at writing and good at storytelling and all of that. Then fast forward to high school, I started a website, and I didn't understand. I'd kind of heard about this blogging thing, but I didn't quite understand it. I literally made a website, and like imagine you go to a website right now and you go to the about page. I thought that the blog was, oh, I'm just going to update that page every day. I didn't realize you could make individual blog posts, which led me to finding out about blogging. And I was like, oh, there's literally something like a WordPress blog. And I found out about those guys. I was like, okay. So I started writing for a blog. It's still around, commoncollective.com. I think we've got like 300 or 400 articles by this point. And I just recently started writing again, like on a more regular basis. But I chose copywriting because I dabbled in all these different things. I had tried drop shipping and I was able to make some money, but it wasn't anything sustainable. Otherwise, I would probably still be doing it to this day. I tried having a cute computer repair business. I did some stuff on eBay. I tried all these things, but it wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And so something I tell my students is like, find something you're naturally good at. And they overthink that. So basically what I say is like, if you told me, because I've tried it, web design, if I had to code a website, I would rather go right over to that wall right now and bash my head into it than have to figure out how to code a website versus writing. It's always just been my thing. You could tell me an idea, I could sit down and start writing right now, no problem. So I chose copywriting because I saw that as my vehicle of I already kind of had that ability. I just didn't necessarily understand the psychology behind it or the different little hacks and what you should and shouldn't do or the words. Even to this day, I was sitting down yesterday with a copywriter, and he was using words I have no idea, but he wanted to sit down with me to pick my brain on some ideas. So it's like I know what I'm doing. I just might not know all the exact words that he was using. So I just copywriting comes naturally to me, and it has for a while. And it was one of the things that allowed me to start actually making money, which obviously is another thing that obviously would make me be interested in it. As I started writing blog posts for people, then after that, I segued into writing like computer pages. Like if you started a website, I would write the about page, the home page, all that type of stuff. And then in 2019, I started doing email copywriting. And that was when I was able to make enough money to live abroad, which was obviously my dream this whole time was I want to make enough money. Well, back in the day, my dream was I want to make enough money writing that I can live in Bangkok, Thailand, make 10 grand a month and just do whatever I want, not have to worry about a job ever. And I thank God I've achieved much more than that. But at the same time, that was that first little goal that I had. So I didn't necessarily consider myself a copywriter really until the past couple of years. It was just, I can write. Okay, I'm going to go through the application of writing emails for people. Then I even segued that into content creation on Twitter and all that. So I chose copywriting it because it gave me, like, I'm naturally good at it, number one. And then two, there's so many applications of it. A lot of people, when they think of copywriting, because I see this with my students every day, they think copywriting is writing sales pages. And I'm like, sure, that's a version of application of copywriting. There's also email copywriting. You could throw Twitter ghostwriting in as a form of copywriting. Like there's so many applications of it. So if you can get the fundamental skills of being able to write, come up with ideas, and understand the psychology behind it, you literally can write whatever check you want. You can print money from the air because any business out there, for the most part, they need a copywriter. And if you're one of those guys that come in, you can write emails for them. You can also do the sales page stuff for them, maybe even blog posts, whatever. There's so many applications that you can make money. So you have no excuse not to, but at least make a living outside of a 9 to 5. So to go back to your original question, the reason I chose it is I'm naturally good at copywriting. And that was where I started finally achieving those little hits of success.
100%, man. Why did you niche down into email? I heard an interesting point you mentioned about focus, which I thought was super, super interesting. But how come you picked email of all vehicles?
So it was kind of by accident. I met up with a friend of mine, and he started gaming. This actually two different friends of mine. One was in Jamaica. It was right before I finally started traveling abroad. This was early, I want to say 2019, maybe January 2019. And a friend of mine was just writing emails. I was like, "What are you doing?" And he explained he's making like $6,000 a month writing emails for clients. And I was like, "But I already do that for because I had my main blog, Common Collective, but I also had some other like niche blogs for affiliate stuff." I was like, "I already do that." He's like, "Yeah, bro, just often write emails for clients. You'll make some good money." He basically was writing emails and able to travel around South America. And so that kind of planted the seed. And then by accident, a couple months later, whenever I moved to Romania, a friend of mine, his name's Frazier, a friend of mine he was writing emails and he started kind of telling me some of the stuff. And then one thing led to another. I started writing emails. And then before I knew it, I was like, "Oh, I write emails. Cool." It was a part of my like one of my first like actual clients abroad was writing some of the emails.
Mhm.
And then I took on my second client, my third client, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. I'm a email copywriter." So I mean, that's really why I chose there
Mhm.
wasn't some like I didn't sit there in a dark room with a candle and predict, look into the future, how that's a success. I really
100%.
just accidentally fell into it over time.
And when you started working with people, were you working on a retainer or a rev share?
Retainer for probably most of the time, and then I started finding the beauty of rev share. I was like, "Oh wow,
Mm.
that's crazy." So for most of the time, I did retainer, and I recommend a lot of the people. There's two different ways I would go about monetizing myself whenever I'm talking to students. Is I like retainers because you can predict for the most part, as long as the client keeps you on and you're delivering results. Because at the end of the day, that's all clients care about. Are you making the money? Are you professional? Are you even a likable person? Like if you can hit those different things, then you can predict, okay, I am 100% going to be making 8 grand for the next couple, like this month, probably next month. And then from there, you can grow it. So if you want to make an extra grand, okay, I'm going to go close another client for a grand. Or if I want to make another 3 grand, I'm going to go close another client for 3 grand, or three clients at a grand a pop. But in the beginning, especially, I've actually been testing this with some of my students over the past couple of weeks, and I'm pushing them into, if they don't have testimonials, to go down the rev share path because it's zero risk. You can frame it as in, I'm going to come in, write emails for you. You're not going to have to pay me. I know a lot of people want money up front. You only pay me if I get your results, and it's like literally just a risk-free thing. So I've started testing some of my beginner level students with that, with the rev share, like just performance based. And it's really easy to set up. You can literally just get them to give you a affiliate link for 15%, 20% per sell. You're good. But on my end, whenever I got started, because I literally knew nothing about business, I knew nothing about copywriting. I didn't know anything about anything. If you like, I just by this point knew how to put together a WordPress blog, new article, new email, right subject line, click this link. That's basically my entire knowledge at that point. So I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, a grand a month. Oh, okay, for this 1,500 a month.
Mhm.
Okay, I can see that I'm making clients X amount of money, so logically it makes sense for them to pay
Mhm.
me like 2 grand a month or 3 grand a month, whatever it was." So I just stuck to the retainer for a long time until I discovered this performance based, which and I recommend that everybody's watching this if you're interested, start talking to other freelancers. Like obviously inside the real world, I teach students how to get into the freelancing game, email copywriting, whatever your skill is. And I basically just tell you everything you need to do from picking up clients, getting testimonials, how to maintain that relationship, how to build a team eventually. I teach all that, but I definitely limited myself in the early days because I didn't think to read about this stuff or any. I was trying to just learn everything through my own experience. So whenever I finally discovered performance based, I didn't even think about it that way. I was like, okay, we're going to launch this product, and they brought up the idea of because you help put together this product, you also wrote the sales page for us because I was always about over delivering it, which could correlate back to me being learning disabled back in the day. I just always over delivered. So either pay me to write emails, but I put a lot of work into creating the outline for the product, looking over, oh, we should do this, we shouldn't say that. Okay, I'm going to put together this ClickFunnels page for us, and I did that, and I over delivered, and they gave me a affiliate link, and I was like, I wonder if I could do this for more clients. And then later I discovered the word of performance based rev share. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, maybe I can start doing this with more clients, and which is great. But the retainer is really good in the beginning, in my opinion, because you can or at some point, because you can predict the income that you're going to be making.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's going to be up and down, up and down, up and down. But you can definitely secure some clients in the very, very beginning, for sure, risk free. If you're like I was in the early days, where you doubted yourself, you didn't like, I'm not sure about this. They're going to pay me money to write emails or whatever your skill is, and you can,
Mm.
like, instead of them paying you $1,000, $2,000 up front, you only get paid if you deliver. And I guess another good point about that is you can actually predict, or not predict, but learn actual data of when I write emails, they deliver, they make X amount of sales or whatever your skill is. Obviously, not every skill makes sense for rev
Mhm.
share, but like whenever I wrote the email for them today and we sent it, they made X amount of sales. Whenever I wrote this email, they got 0 sales. Whenever I wrote this email, they got 0 sales. Then I changed the subject line, kind of took what I wrote with this first email. It was basically the same approach, but it was a different storyline. We had a stronger call to action, a stronger subject line, something like that, and they made like 10 sales. Okay, now we've got some actual data that we can move on. So it's like little things like that, bro. But retainer, performance based, you should just test it. Test both of them and see which works best for you.
I love that, man, because you're building up, as you said, data. You're building up experience, and you're seeing
Yep.
two things. You're building confidence in yourself, and you're also being able to show like this kind of portfolio of what you have. Because, man, in the early days of my agency, I did everything for free. I did 3 to 4 months for free. Just would contact people, being like, "Can I help you do this?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Same.
okay, cool." And I did everything for free, man. And I was so happy. They were my first testimonials, whatever. And the only reason I discovered RevShare was when I spoke to someone who was a direct response marketer, who was working with a
Yep.
medical company, and he was doing like 5% on sales. So, man, and he was making, they were doing like 1 million and he was making 50K, or was that 50K? So that's fucking wild. But then, of course, the flip side to that was when I was speaking to someone else, they said that, well, if the rev share is so high, they'll just cut you and then they'll hire internally because they're like, this is a huge
Yep.
payment we're playing.
That's
So,
a
of
really good
course,
point.
there's pros and cons to life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's the way I get into it. But I love that, though. It's really good because give someone who's starting a way to get in the door, build data, build experience. Now, I wanted to get into that technical side there. You said around persuasion and psychology. So people kind of often say as well, like, oh, you should understand like the psychology of writing and everything. But from your perspective, what is it you're really trying to learn? Like, what are the different triggers, I guess? And I suppose a couple of examples from your own use cases here could be helpful.
So are you talking about when, like in copywriting in general, like what are you trying to look for or what?
Yeah, exactly. So I think maybe in copywriting, because copywriting is like the return on it if someone is buying or they're getting involved or they're clicking on something, like what are the aspects that you were learning in the psychology space, the persuasion space that have helped
Mhm.
you a lot?
Yeah, so it really comes down to understanding each of your clients' market. Like this is I call this like your client avatar. Like every client, yes, you can create an opt-in form. You can have an email list. You email it X amount of times, and you kind of can predict and have like a templated approach to each of your clients. And obviously, I'm speaking from an email copywriting perspective. We can go into any skill you want, but at the same time, that market's going to be different. Like example, CNN, Fox News, complete different markets that they apply to. Like that's like I was talking to a guy that works for me the other day. It's like, bro, like I would never watch this. I was like, yeah, but there's millions of people that watch this particular channel. Why? Because there's a market. So it comes down to understanding each of your clients' markets. So like if you work within like one, I guess, quote unquote niche, you for the most part, you know what types of things like trigger words, what people are looking for and all that. But then it also comes down to, and this is what I love about social media, is you can just literally look on their Twitter account or their Instagram account or their YouTube channel and see what their audience really is interested in, what things are getting the most amount of engagement, check the comments. And then from there, I turn that into emails. We'll turn that into possible products. Like the audience will literally tell you what they want to pay for. Like a lot of people, they make the mistake of coming up with these products or coming up with these content ideas because they just think that it's going to be a great thing for that the audience is just going to love it. That isn't probably not going to happen. People buy things because, well, they buy something because it actually helps them to some kind of degree. So it comes down to, and I'm not even really much of a direct response psychology type of person. It just comes down to me. I identify what people are actually looking for, what they're talking about, the types of content they're engaging with. And then from there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to create stories based off whatever my clients are. So you could literally just send a message to your client, be like, hey, can you tell me one time when XYZ happened? Or if you're in this situation, how would you react? Or can you tell me 3 tips for blah, 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 blah? And they'll send me a voice note, and then I'll transcribe that, and then I'll sit there and I'll edit it into a good email, or we can come up with a campaign. But it really comes down to this is my approach. That doesn't mean it's the best. Like, some people really like to nerd out and understand the psychology and direct response approaches and all this stuff. But it comes down to understanding your market. So what are they actually looking for? What is that person doing? Like, there's a real person on the other side watching this video right now. I understand this whenever I'm writing emails for clients or for myself, or if I'm writing a blog post. I'm writing to a real living, breathing human being. Maybe once AI takes over, it'll be different, but I'm writing to an actual human being that has problems. They have doubts. They have different things like that. And if I understand that I'm talking to a person, I understand the market, I understand the stuff that they're looking for or the pains they're going through. And then I can even take content and see what content people are engaging with that follow my particular client, or if they follow me, whatever it is. Okay, this tweet got 50 likes and like 50 retweets. That's a bad example compared to 2 retweets and 2 likes. Obviously, there's more people that follow me or follow my client that are like this type of the topic. So I'll start talking about that. And then magically, people start opening up the emails, they start purchasing, and I could go on and on for hours about that. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's what I do is I just look at what people are actually interested in. I have a baseline understanding of the market. I understand my client, the pros and cons of my client, what attracts people to my client. Because people, and this isn't my thing, it's a very cliche thing, people buy from other people. So if you
Of
can
course.
understand why do people follow my particular client, like I know on my end, the reason a lot of people follow me is I'm relatable. I don't try to be anything that I'm not. I've got a pretty relatable story as far as like I used to be like almost 300 pounds basically. Like I was super fat. I still need to lose weight, but I used to be super fat and I lost that weight. I've worked in a 9 to 5. I've been learning disabled. I've done all this. And just through sheer like showing up every single day, working, 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 you can see over years and years of time my progression.
Mhm.
So I understand that. So I know that people like me for being relatable. So I'm not going to try to be something I'm not. Versus
Mhm.
another client, maybe they like this particular client because he's almost like superhuman in some shape or form. So I'm going to lean into that. Does that make sense, or am I being a little too?
No, no, no. It makes perfect sense, man. I think what's lovely about that as well is the fact that you have tapped into the viewer's mind already, and that's kind of the area people struggle with. That's why people have shit content. And I was even speaking with Sterling with this last week. That's the litmus test: is that when you put something out, if people don't like it,
Mhm.
that's the reason why they don't like it, because it's shit, and it doesn't resonate with them. So you need to lean into what different happened. But I like the fact that you're able to kind of understand and sympathize, because I actually just have a tweet that's coming out in a schedule in a minute being like, you shouldn't be creating stuff for yourself. You should be creating stuff for your previous self, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years
Yeah.
ago, when you were just starting out, the pains you were feeling, how like the stupid questions you had and how uncomfortable it made you feel, because that's what makes it plausible. And especially for coming out with products, man, or services, or even what you're teaching in the real world, you're often helping
Mhm.
someone who was you at the very beginning. And that's why
Yeah.
all this works. That's why we don't trust people who are just shilling anything. They come out with a
Mhm.
new crypto coin, they shill shit to their followers, but you don't trust that. You want to look for
Yeah.
those kind of people who are relatable and are like role models, which essentially is kind of like what you're paving the way for, which I really admire as well.
Yeah, 100%. Especially the way the world's going, this being more of just a relatable person is going to become more and more popular. And to go back to the point of just finding what the audience is looking for, it really is a perfect litmus test. Like, if you create content and people engage with it, obviously people are interested in it. Don't sit there and keep acting like a victim and, oh, the algorithm just doesn't like my content. Oh, come on, bro. It's because your content sucks. That's why that's happening. Or if nobody's buying from your emails, don't keep writing the same exact stuff. Sit back and ask yourself, okay, why aren't they like buying? Maybe they don't even want the product to begin with. This is something I do for clients. Run a poll on your Instagram, run a poll on YouTube, on Twitter, and see what some of their common problems are. Have you tried that? Oh no, but I just this idea would be really no. Run a poll, see what people actually engage with. Oh, they're not actually even interested in what you're about to make a product on, they're really interested about this specific thing, why don't we put together a product about that, or put together an email campaign about that to segue into some kind of product you already have? I mean, use your audience to get perfect. It's literally data. They're actual people with actual problems. They follow you for some specific reason. And if you can lean into that and actually help them, which is what you're supposed to be doing at the end of the day, sure, making money is great, but it's a byproduct of you actually helping people. So if you can run polls and figure out what people are looking for, if you can write content, see what people are actually engaging with, all of a sudden you go from just being a victim to actually making money and actually changing lives. So there's no magic to this. And this is something I try to tell students all the time is they just sit around and they're looking for some like swipe file. Like every single time I send this specific email, 100% guarantees somebody's going to open. I'm like, stop doing that. You can compliment people. You can lead with value. You can I give them various frameworks that they can use, but I keep putting into their mind, and the students that apply this, or as I say on Twitter, understand this and prosper. That once they actually pay attention to what I'm saying and they apply it, that's when they start progressing. And that is, stop looking for some templated approach to DMs or even cold email or content or whatever. If you focus on, if this is from a client outreach perspective, you focus on in my DM instead of me trying to, hey, Darren, today your Instagram video was really good. I related to it because of this. By the way, are you going to be using this video in one of your emails? Like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. If I rocked up to you and I was like, hey, Darren, really liked your video. I actually just helped a client of mine make 30 grand last month. Here's some of the ideas I have for you. And I show you a screenshot of the money I made a client. I give you some bullet points. That's going to get more of a positive response from you versus me trying to like, obviously it's not even a genuine compliment. I really liked your video today. It really related to me because back whenever who cares? So stop looking for some templated approach to DM. Stop looking for a templated approach to really anything and actually get real data.
And man, that's it could be because I could be shit at cold email, but I stopped doing like, fucking like having like a list of emails running out, like a huge list and sending generic emails. I stopped using platforms like Lemlist. I stopped doing all that stuff
Yeah.
because I realized that everything had to be personalized. And whenever I speak to people, like
Yeah.
I even speaking to you earlier, I do an unscalable personalized approach to my emails and to my DMs. I do videos, I do Loom videos. I
Love
just
it.
learned out that they're called like VSLs the other day. I literally learned that out the other day, even though I'd been
Yeah.
sending hundreds of videos, bear in mind, for so long. And
Mhm.
that's the stuff that matters because I'm like, here's your problem, here's a solution, here's how I can help you,
Mhm.
and here's some other examples that I've used other people with, versus this fucking email loop that we send on a
Mhm.
scheduler that goes nowhere. Like,
Yeah.
and maybe some people can do it, and 100% because like Lemlist and Lempire are a great platform, and 100% it works for people. But for me, I just felt like that it just wasn't that human touch. And when I just
Yeah.
get into the DMs and actually speak to people, it works a lot more. So I kind of wanted to ask you
Mhm.
about that as well, like, because I've never actually been kind of DMing on Instagram or Twitter. I actually mainly use LinkedIn. And the reason why I use LinkedIn is because first, you can like social proof yourself. And secondly,
Yeah.
the average income is pretty high. It's around $75,000. And 1% of the platform posts on LinkedIn compared to other platforms. So by just doing that, you're already literally in the 1% by default. So I kind of wanted to get your approach on how you do Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah. So going back to that was a really good point that you made because I'll have students of mine sometimes they brag about, hey, Dylan, I just sent 500 DMs. I'm like, and how long did it take for you to do that? Oh, I sent 500 DMs this past week, but nobody's responding. And I'm like, how'd you find how'd you find these people? Like, and it comes down to, and I'll just this is what I tell students of mine. I'll tell you, I'll tell the viewers, find somebody like I go like if you've ever played Call of Duty, like be
Yeah.
more of like take a sniper approach. Like instead of you going and just trying to spray into a room, sit back, be calm, and just be like a sniper on Call of Duty or something, and actually look for people. Yes, it takes more work, but would you rather put in a little bit more effort and get an actual result, or would you like to feel good? Oh yeah, I just sent 500 DMs, or oh, I just sent 500 emails. Cool. That's not a flex. The flex is, did you actually get a response? Did you close that client? Did you get them results? Did you get a testimonial? Did you get experience? And are you building an actual business? Because that's what I care about. I don't care about how many DMs I sent and all. Who cares? So find somebody that has an actual audience, 10, 20, 30,000, 100,000 followers. I don't recommend going past 100,000. From there, look at their engagement, especially on Instagram. You have to be very careful about this because anybody and everybody can buy engagement on Instagram. I'm sure you can do it on Twitter. It's just not as popular. But go through and actually see the comments. Is it a bunch of just random emojis, or is it their genuine comments back and forth? And once again, this is for Instagram specifically. Go through and actually see some of the accounts that are liking these some of their posts. You don't need to do it for every post, but scroll back a little bit. Don't do the latest post. Go back maybe 2 or 3 swipes, and then click the post or click the video, whatever, and check the amount of like the types of likes. Does it correlate? Like if they've got 100,000 followers, but yet they're getting like 12 likes, obviously that is not an actual account. Go to the next person. Go to the next person. Go to the next person. So find someone that actually has engagement that correlates to the amount of followers, and then look for, do they have something to sell? If they don't have something to sell, not saying don't work with them, but it doesn't really make sense to work together, especially
100%.
yeah, because like you need to find somebody that you can help make them money and you can help save them time and all that type of stuff. So if you can do that and you actually find people, yes, it takes longer. Who cares? I want you to actually make money.
You're broke. Keep going. What else are you doing?
Well, you can stay poor or you can actually make money back, which is finding people that have an actual audience, have engagement, have a product to sell. And then from there, this is something else you can do. Once you start putting together, just put it on a spreadsheet, put it on a Google Doc, whatever you do. I have my team take care of that because I don't like handling that. And I've got somebody that handles this completely. I'm talking about way back in the day whenever I was having to do a lot of this by myself. Put it on a spreadsheet, put it on a Google Doc. And now not only do you have that person, and let's speak through the perception of doing like Instagram. You find this person on Instagram. See if they have a YouTube channel. See if they have a Twitter. See if they have a LinkedIn, like for somebody like yourself. And get all this data on that. So you have their Instagram, you have all their socials. And then you can even, if you want to go really autist about this, you can even have like the common things that you could actually help them with. You can put it on that document as well. And also put down, once you've reached out to them, what day, what time, or you don't have to do the time, but what date you reached out to them. That way you can follow up a couple of days later. And if they don't respond to you, guess what? Because you took the extra time and you found their Twitter or you found their LinkedIn, now you can reach out to them on that platform. Because I know on my end, I kind of respond to my Twitter DMs. I kind of respond to my Instagram DMs. But like if you email me, a lot of the time I'll respond. That does not mean to have my email leaked because I know I'm going to say this and it's going to be clipped up and I'm going to start getting bombarded. Instagram's the best place to reach me. Yeah, just DM me. But yeah, like they might not actually respond to their Instagram DMs. They might respond more on Twitter or vice versa. And so if you can do that, now you actually can start following up and you can maximize the effort you put into that lead. And then you can also see the types of people they collaborate with, the types of people that they also follow. Like example, I follow a lot of other people in my same niche. I follow other creators, all that type of stuff. That doesn't mean I'm 100% money bag endorsing them, but that does mean that there's some kind of value that I saw in them, so I followed them. Maybe it was just out of, oh, they followed me, I followed them back, who cares? But now you can turn that one lead into possible like 10, 20, 30, whatever other leads that you can now reach out to. And you go through the same process. So go through who Darren follows, go through who Dylan follows, and start putting together a list of, okay, here's this guy, he's got a fitness brand, this guy's got this brand, this guy's got this brand, here's their different socials. And you can literally just build up a big list. And I would drop something else, but I don't want to overkill it because I just told my students about it. But it's another great way for you to find people that actually have products. You find their social media like that. But I'm not going to say it. I almost dropped it. But I want them to get the most out of it first.
Man, that is so sick because it's like it's a network effect that you've built yourself. Because I think some people might feel like that. Oh, like where's the leads coming from? Where's the lead flow coming from? But you're opening up those doors by just examining that individual and seeing where they go off to. Like that's literally incredible, man. I never even thought about that because you open yourself into a whole new world that you don't even know. I think that's the beauty of it because you figure these things out as you go, but you can very much limit yourself on that other sense. Say, oh, I DM'd him, he didn't get back to me. Fuck it, move on to something else, So you're pretty much opening up and tracking your stuff, man, using some sort of CRM or spreadsheet. Like that's just the way to go, That's what builds an actual business, I think, because I remember one of my best mates said to me recently, he was like, conversations you have today is money a year later. or even 18 months
I
later,
like that. Yeah.
especially if it's big B2B stuff, you know. And I think what we're kind of doing is with businesses that like strike conversation, they follow you back, you prove your worth with your Twitter, your Instagram. 18
Mhm.
months time, when they either get some money or they raise capital for their startup, you're the dude to call. That's the beauty
Yeah.
of it, because I think what you're doing as well is you're building like a huge business that you want to come back to in the future. It's not the short term
Mhm.
stuff, so you're not that
Yeah.
concerned about making it big in the short term, and that's the way you should be thinking
Exactly.
about this. I think, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you actually brought that up. This is something I'm telling people all the time: is stop trying to just do whatever you can to win in the short term. Like last I checked, you wanted to change your life, change your family's life. So play the long game. Like
Yeah,
I could have started using my testimonials up front, all that, but I was like, I'm going to put together my testimonials. I'm going to get really good at my skill and develop myself and play the long game, because I never want to be that guy that has to return to his hometown and go back to changing trash cans, cleaning bathrooms, doing all that. I refuse that. So I'm going to play the long game. And you could also argue it was maybe a little self doubt. I could have sped it up a little bit more, but I wanted to make sure for that first client, I'm actually good at my skill. Then I took on
yeah,
my second client. I need to make sure that maybe I got lucky with this one client, so let me make sure that I'm really good with this. And then I took on the third client. Then I actually started doing outreaching, because I was like, okay, Dylan, you actually are good at this, but you need to play the long game. And it can suck in the beginning, especially if you're a beginner, or maybe you're like, you have a business, but it's making 5, 10 grand a month. You want to make more. And you need to be talking to people every day. Every single day, you should be sending out DMs. The only time that I recommend you stop doing any kind of outreach is because this is actually something I realized about a year and a half ago, from a mentor of mine. It's like, why do you need to be constantly pushing, trying to grow your business when the business you have now, like we were fulfilling for clients, but it was like, oh God, we're like trying to take on new clients. We're launching these projects. Like, oh my, he was like, why are you doing that to yourself? Why don't you just take a step back for the next month or two, focus on the clients you have, and then take a step forward? I was like, oh my God, that's so genius. So you should be doing outreach every single day until you get your business to a point to where you're like, okay, the lights are going to be on, everything's good. The people that work for me are taken care of. I'm making good money from it, because obviously your business, you're not taking 100% of the money. Like if your business is doing 20 grand a month, it doesn't mean that you're making 20 grand a month. How much are you paying yourself in salary? Obviously, you got people that work for you, and focus on building a solid foundation for your business, even if it's taking a step back from outreach. And then once you get everything running as it should be, the systems are in place, the people in the team know what they're doing, and clients are fulfilled, then at that point you can take that step forward. And you're actually not going to take just one step, you might take 5 steps forward, because now you've actually got the systems in place to do it. So going back to, you should be doing outreach every single day until you get your business to the point where, like, okay, everything's good. I'm going to focus on really dialing in my systems and just getting the foundation solid. And then you turn the DMs off. You don't have to go out and be doing outreach every single day. And once you get to that point, until you're ready to actually grow the business, but you are not going to make money until you let people know that you exist, because nobody knows that you exist, even if you're like sitting there trying to grind out posting content, until you send them that DM. So if you want clients, and if you're sitting here watching this, really, Dylan, I really want to take on clients, well, start reaching out to them in the DMs. And also stop assuming that they care about you. Nobody cares that you're a freelancer. Nobody cares that you're an email copywriter, you're a web designer. They don't care about any of that. They care about how are you going to help them. And if you have social proof of any kind, you can validate what you're saying, because everybody talks big game nowadays. If you can come rock up and say, here are some of the results I've gotten, here's how I'm going to help you with some bullet points. Don't send them a DM that's like this. Send them some bullet points. You're good. And you let them know about you. And you don't frame it as, hey, Darren, so I'm an email copywriter. I also have a Twitter account, and I've got nobody cares. If I came up and I was like, Darren, here's what I've done for a client. Here's some ideas I've got for you. If you're interested, let me know. Something like that. That's 1,000 times better. So yeah, you should be doing outreach until you get your business to the point where you're like, okay, I need to chill out, because a lot of people have psyops themselves into, because of these success gurus. You constantly have to be growing the business. If you're not growing the business, everything's falling apart. Oh no, get your business to a point where you're doing well. That doesn't mean now you're making $1,000 a month. Now you get lazy. No, get your business to an actual business, maybe like 10 grand a month, something like that. And then if you find that you're struggling to, like, you don't really have a solid foundation, it's okay to take a step back and figure out how can I actually grow my business. And this is something that I more and more force myself to do. I've got a big whiteboard right there. I would show it to you, but then you'd see my big master plan of taking over the world. But I sit there with my whiteboard and I'll ask myself questions like, okay, why are we facing this issue? And then I start writing the response to it. But you're not going to be able to do that if you are constantly pushing, going like just push, sending out the DMs, doing this. If you're hardly fulfilling for clients, maybe that puts an idea in your mind of where you want to take this conversation. But
Mhm.
like you need to get your business to a point where you have like a solid foundation. Because you're playing the long game, you're not playing the short game.
Build the infrastructure around you, you know. And I think
Yeah,
talking about sales and marketing is the sexy thing to do because it's what
yeah,
sells. You know, it's what all the SMA dudes are selling, but nobody speaks about the fulfillment. You know, like the real fulfillment part of stuff. And I think that's what I actually
the
wanted to
actual
focus on
business.
the actual business, because I don't know how you feel about it, but my biggest mistake or my biggest worry was a client churning and then talking shit about me, rightly
Mhm.
so, if it was a bad service, you know. That's way
Yeah,
more damaging than bringing someone in. And also the other aspect of it too is that I don't really want to be always trying to get new clients. I just want to keep the existing ones that I have. The way Justin
exactly.
explained it to me was that he was like, in the service business you want to hunt, kill, and then not have to go hunting again. Like, you don't want to be always fucking hunting. You want that business to
Hmm.
pay you back over the course of a year or a year and a half, or
Yeah,
however long the tenure of the, and it also increases the lifetime value of your client, you know.
yeah.
I want to ask you about the systemizing the process, because definitely something that I'm kind of struggling with sometimes at times as well, in terms of like what systems do you build? How do you build systems? Even saying the word systems is like sexy these days, but like
Yeah.
from a practical perspective, like what are you looking to fill? Like, is it lead gen? Is it fulfillment? Is it marketing? What do you think about this?
Yeah. So when it comes to systems, it really, and obviously it depends on the business, but we'll talk from
Of
like a
course.
service-based business standpoint. You need to have some kind of onboarding system. Like I'm not the genius of systems. I've got a really good right-hand guy that's just how his brain works. So I can basically tell him, here's my outcome, here's the job that we have, here's what we need to fulfill it, put together a list for them, and then he basically takes care of it. But you need to have a very clear onboarding system. A lot of people, especially early in the game, it is chaos. As soon as you take on a client, it's just chaos. You're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. You need to have a clear objective. Like my objective early on as an email copywriter was, as soon as my client and I signed, like we signed together, I put together a Google Drive and I have Google folders, all that type of stuff inside of social proof. So I want to click that folder and have all their social proof. And I used to go through and find it myself. I do recommend at some point hiring somebody because it's not even worth your time, but it does help. I'll put together the social proof. I'll put together any like products they have. So I'd have my client give me access to their products. And then I would have all this organized in my Google Drive. And that way it's a part of the whole onboarding process. You need to have very clear step. Okay, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And obviously you can, if it's a video agency, it's going to be a slightly different onboarding, but I'm talking from an email copywriter. And as an email copywriter, I want to, as soon as you sign up with me, I want to start making money as quickly as possible. So I would have a specific campaign that I would launch for one of their products that would make them money, because it was like a 2 soft sell emails and 1 hard sell email with a discount if they hadn't purchased by that point. So I could get them that win ASAP. So you need to design an onboarding system that gets them some kind of progress, even if it's videos edited, whatever it is. They need to see something tangible. And then from there, the actual aspects of the whatever the job is. Like I've got my right hand guy. He manages people. We have a very clear task list for every person. We've got editors on staff. We have some copywriters on staff. They know exactly what their job is. We don't just say, okay, you're a video editor. Here's how many videos we want you to do. No, we don't do that. We've literally got a Loom video where my guy goes through. We've got our head editor. He went through. He created a Notion document of, here's the way we edit videos. Here's why we do it. Here are the types of colors we use. Here's the captions we use. We've got that entire Notion document for them. And we've got a Loom video that walks them through step by step of what they actually need to do. And an issue that I've noticed a lot of people do whenever they're designing these systems and they're hiring people is they don't explain that well enough. They need to literally see you doing the job, and they also need to have a checklist. don't assume that they're just going to know, like watch the video and automatically know what they're going to do. Like try, you don't need to be super intense about it, but you need to at least have a checklist of do not submit this video until it has this, and this. And then you need to be getting updates every single day. You don't need to micromanage, because I did that back in the day. I would literally every hour, I was that annoying guy. Hey, what's going on with this? Hey, don't do that. Just don't do it. But you do need to get updates every single day. So on my phone, we've got some Telegram groups. So I design Telegram groups where they update me on what's going on randomly throughout the day. Like, hey, bro, these videos got done. Hey, this content got posted. Hey, here's what's going on with this email, blah, 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 blah. So they do that. But it really just comes down to your goal, your intention needs to have some kind of self-sustaining system to where you have an actual business. Meaning, back in the day, like, what was it, like 8 or 9 months ago, I found that if I disappeared for like a couple days, chaos would ensue. And I was like, that is not an actual business. That, like, a mentor of mine slapped me around. I was like, bro, you don't have a business. You have a very high paying job, basically, and you have to be there every single day. So I was like, I don't want to live like that. If I want to disappear for like a week or so, which I don't plan to do that anytime soon. But if I decided to disappear and just go on a vacation or whatever it is, I want the business to continue growing. So you need to identify, like, it depends on the example of the business. Let's use email copywriting. If you're an email copywriter, if you decide to hire a copywriter, well, you need to have a very clear step-by-step thing on what they need to do. How are they going to find the content to write an email around? Like, okay, step 1, go to his Twitter account, go to his Instagram, his YouTube, see what the comments are about, see what content's getting the most engagement. Step 2, do this. Step 3, do this, all the way to where they're testing the email. So they make sure the email is actually going to the primary. It's not end of the world if it goes to promo, but ideally it goes to primary. So they need to be testing the email. They need to try different subject lines. You need to have a process to get to the call to action. From a lead gen standpoint, if you aren't doing that yourself, you've got somebody doing that, they need to walk you through the process that we walked through earlier. Find somebody as an actual audience, step by step. Verify if it's actual people that are following, it's not fake engagement. Look for this type of stuff, aka they have like an actual newsletter already. So join that newsletter, make sure they've got a product or a service. They need to have some way of making money, and get that as step by step as possible to where they not only know what to do, they also understand your thought process. Don't just tell them to do something, explain why you think this way. Which leads me to the final thing is also be open to improvement. Like, this is something I tell people that have been working for me for more than a couple of months. Now that you actually understand what to do and you're doing it every single day, if you ever find a way that we could be doing it better and you can show me that it's better, don't be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to keep doing it the way Dylan said because what Dylan said's the best. No, if you see a way to do it better than the way that's been working up to now, please tell me. So as a boss, a owner, or whatever you're going to call it, you need to install that frame of mind into the people that have proven themselves that if you ever at any point find a way to actually improve what we've been doing, let me know. Because I've seen this, because I used to help other people that, and I still do. I've got my advanced student. For example, I've got a guy, he made 60 grand last month. He came to me. He's an amazing animator, does like big time contracts. But what was this, like 6 months ago, 4 months ago when he reached out to me, he had reached a point in his business where he was like working all the time and he didn't have hardly any systems. It was just him and some of his team. And we sat down and we clarified exactly step by step what they needed to do, the Loom videos, everything. And it transformed his business. But he also had people that had been working for him for a while, and they actually had ideas that were way better than how he had been doing it up to that point. So it's about creating like an actual team around you that is invested into the vision. They understand what they're clearly doing, and don't make it like a job. Like, it is a job, but don't make it just like this. Oh, boop, boop, boop. You're just a robot. Like, actually explain the thought process and give them the steps, and then also incentivize them. That's actually my final point when it comes to the team stuff is incentivize them. Nobody is going to want to work endlessly, because like a lot of the people that work for, if you're like a video editor or something like that, like you've got 3 videos a day, that's it. But like people that are going to be very heavily invested in the business and you want them to be working 10 hours a day, sometimes you need to give them an actual incentive. So for me, that's maybe I'll buy them a new laptop. If we hit XYZ, I'm going to buy you a new laptop. this last month, yeah, because we're in June now. So in May, I was like, if every day we hit this goal, you're getting a bonus. So whenever I go to pay them, I'm going to give them a $2,000 bonus just because they hit this goal. So you need to find ways to incentivize as well, because it's not just about, okay, you're lucky because you work a job.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure, you can work from anywhere in the world because it's a remote job. No, you need to incentivize them. Otherwise, they're going to get bored and they're going to go, man, why am I sitting here working all the time for this guy making the same amount of money? You need to find ways to incentivize financially, but there's also other ways as well. It's not just all about the money.
Of course, man. Of course, that's actually fantastic, man. It's exactly where I guess like I even want to go to next. And even with my small team, like small things you might find this interesting too is that I always give successes from clients. So just like here's where we are, like here's what we produce, and here's what we do, and here's all the successes. And they've literally said like it's a motivator because they feel part of the journey, part of the vision.
Yeah,
It's not me sitting on top of the mountain. You know what I mean? It's like we're all working together. Like that's the kind of goal. And I think having
which is the
that
truth.
yeah, I think having that unlimited upside too. To be honest, I learned this from Justin too. He was saying that Thomas, who introduced us,
Yeah,
he's
awesome
like
guy.
he's unlimited upside. So depending on how much he works, how much he produces, he can make as much as he wants, and obviously he has like location freedom and all that good stuff too.
Mhm.
But I think that's the ultimate kind of benefit because that's the opposite to a corporate career whereby you do this job, you stay in this lane, shut the fuck up, get on with it.
Yeah,
It's you're part of the journey. That's the main thing. Before we wrap up,
yeah,
man, I wanted to ask you about networking community. So of course we have a couple of like overlapping people in our network, and like it's been hugely beneficial for you and for me over the years. But how
yeah.
how much do you think your life has actually changed, of course, from your network? And that's an easy question because of the massive changes you have had in the last couple of years.
Bro, it's been like phenomenal because back in the day, I actually reached a point in my life where I was like, am I actually like just messed up in the head? Like, am I crazy? Like, I feel like working this regular job, like I know everybody else is doing it, but like I just don't fit into this. I don't fit into this type of lifestyle. I don't want to be about that. And I actually reached a point where I thought that once again, something was wrong with me
Mm.
for a very short amount of time until I went to this event up in New York City and I met all these like-minded people that literally thought just like me, and not only thought like me, they were actually successful. They were crushing it, and I was like, okay, so this is actually real. So at the very beginning stage, the beauty of networking is that you get to actually see that the way you're thinking, like all the people that we're all like on a similar wavelength. All the people that have been brought to this video to watch this, you're on the path with us. You're not crazy. Number one. Number two, there are other people out there that think just like you that want a different type of lifestyle than just the regular 9 to 5, living paycheck to paycheck, all that type of stuff. So on my end, personally, literally my life is a testament to the beauty and power of networking. It
Mm.
proved to me that it was real, and then it also started showing me like a lot of these top guys, and it's for multiple reasons. I think one, just being objective. I'm a likable person. People can tell I'm genuine, and I'm also going back to that learning disabled thing. I over deliver. So like no matter what, I will over deliver. I will over deliver over everybody. Of course, that's me saying that as the most modest person in the world, but I over deliver in everything, and so people pick up on that. Because most people, they just, I'm thinking about how I can make money from it. I don't care about the money. I just want
Yeah.
to be in the room. I want to prove my worth to you. So I'm going to over deliver. So by you doing that on my end, that put me in the room with a lot of up and coming people, and they're like major now. And then also to this day, still puts me in at tables. We were talking about this beforehand. Puts me at tables of very rich and powerful types of people. Because if you're likable, if you're genuine, it's going to open so many doors. Which leads me to opened so many doors. I remember back in what was this 2017, I worked with a guy on a book launch. No reason. In hindsight, I'm like, why did he even think that I could do this?
Was
But it's
that Ed
because I met.
Lattimore?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was in my mind, like thinking about this now. I'm like, how did he even think I knew what I was doing? But I pulled it off. I pulled it off.
Mm.
I did very well. He put me in his book as far as like he shouted me out. He also wrote the foreword for one of my books, etc. But anyways, just because I put myself in a room with him and I proved myself at some of the events and all that type of stuff that, wow, this guy actually is about it. The door opened. So if you're sitting here watching this, and you feel like you're not really making the progress, and you look around, all your friends, maybe you're going to school, all your friends, they just want to play video games and maybe do like drugs or something, whatever. You're like, man, I don't want to be about this. Or maybe you're in your 20s like we are. You're like, man, there's got to be more than life than just working this regular job and doing this, living this type of lifestyle. You need to start putting yourself in rooms of people that are like-minded, whether it's online like we do in the real world, like you can literally be around people on that same path, or in like offline, finding people, going to events, different things like that. It's going to make this path even more real. And we were talking about this earlier, is your point, like a conversation can like lead to money at some point. A conversation
Mhm.
can lead you to thinking about a certain thing that you read about 2 years ago, but you never thought about it that way, but they say it in a certain way that just flips the switch on in your mind. I've had that happen so many times I can't even count. So you need to be putting yourself around other people and don't try to get anything out of it. A lot of people, once again, they just try to, how can I talk to this person and get something out? Come on, bro, don't do that. Just go there because you like to be around cool and interesting people that are on a
Mhm.
similar path that you are. And the amount of doors are going to open, the amount of ideas you're going to be given, the little seeds that are going to be planted in your mind that are going to come out at some point. And maybe you'll even think it was your idea, but it was actually a conversation that you and I had on this podcast. Somebody's going to be listening to this and they're going to have an idea 2 months from now, 2 months from the time they're watching this video, and they're, oh wow, that's such a genius idea, all because they took the time to come to a podcast.
Mhm.
So yeah, networking, bro, is life changing for everybody, but you have to approach it in a very genuine way.
Genuine way is the only way. And I asked Sterling that question too. I was like, how does someone get into like your circle without being like sleazy, and also someone who's like kind of on the way up, right? And he was like, you
Mhm.
just be normal and you just say something
Exactly.
funny. You just talk to him. And he was like, the worst thing you could be is someone who's like a fanboy. If you just come into
Yeah.
it, have a conversation, just talk, just be normal, because like everyone's just fucking normal. And then like all the side businesses, the real estate deals, all this stuff just will like
Mhm.
happen in the future, you know?
Yeah,
And it's
exactly,
just about
bro.
like approaching these things with like actual legitimacy, and not
Mhm.
being a fucking sleazebag was the whole scenario, you know. And you can spot it a mile away, and that's why sometimes networking events, like actual like conferences, are bollocks. I don't go to them
Mhm.
most of the time. Like not necessarily like paid group communities. That's different. But I just mean like open door networking events.
Yeah, I
They're
know what you mean.
very
Yeah.
very forced fun. That's exactly the word. It's
Mhm.
it's forced fun. It's disingenuous. You know. Do you go to some events in the war room yourself?
Yeah, I was about to say that, bro. Back in the day, I went to some of these like regular networking events, and I was like, "Where am I?" So I focused on just online communities. Like, thank
Where?
God for online communities.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the war room, those are the only events that I actually go to. I
Mm,
almost went to this meetup here in Dubai, and I won't give any power to this person's name, but a friend of mine went to it, and they're like, "Bro, it was like such a such a waste of time. It was some big time content creator here in Dubai, and it was a bunch of random losers trying to all get something from each other and try to get followers." So I exclusively only go to war room events at this point, because if I go to a war room event, I know, one, they're like-minded. We operate on a kind of a similar level. They also understand there's a value exchange. Whether I bring something to the table, they bring something to the table. They're very well put together, professional. So I only go to, if it's an offline thing, I only go to war room events at this point. I
mhm.
exclusively avoid those weird real estate networking events, and I don't do that.
Syndicate group events. We all come together. I know the exact vibe, man. But fuck it, man. I want to say a massive thank you for this. Like this was like, it was a six. It's super detailed, man. Super super detailed. This
Oh
was.
yeah, bro, this is a lot of fun. You asked some
Yeah.
really good questions.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm like, you're a super genuine dude. Like anything I can do to ever help you, man. Always just like just ask, you know. But yeah, man. I'm delighted for you as well for what you've done so far, you know. And I think that everything that's happened to you, you deserve it. So I wanted to say a massive thank you, man.